afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Villa Park. There we go. And welcome to Villa Park. It's a glorious day for Premier League football. We're hoping the day doesn't end in a cloud with Norwich City and their Premier League relegation, of course, getting confirmed. That will be the case this afternoon if they are beaten here today by Aston Villa, and of course Burnley beat Watford, which is also a 3 o'clock kickoff. So come full time, we will know whether it will be next week that Norwich City's relegate, well, potentially get confirmed, or whether it will be today. And I guess, Pad, probably the place to start just before team news. We've already seen Dean Smith come out onto the pitch. He's had a chat with Christian Purslow, the man who probably pulled the trigger on him actually in November. He will be desperate to ensure that today isn't the day that Norwich City and his first relegation as a coach isn't confirmed at the very place that he used to manage, and of course at the club that he supported as a boy.
I think the team news is here, Connor.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. So this is Norwich City team, and I guess the major thing to point out straight away is that Sam Byram starts in central defence for Norwich this afternoon. So it's Tim Krul in goal, Aarons, Byram, Hanley and Williams the back four, McLean and Norman the midfield two, Dowell on the right, Rashica on the left, Lise Malou behind Timu Pukki, the subs bench Angus Gunn, Ben Gibson, Lucas Rook, Billy Gilmore, Shemiswar Boheta, Jacob Sorensen, Josh Sargent, Dimitris Giannoulis and John Rowe. So that's Norwich City's team news. 2 changes, Aarons and Williams both recalled. Giannoulis on the bench. Zimmerman obviously misses out through injury. So, I mean, Pat, when you look at that team, the changes that Dean Smith has made has been to the defence. Is that a major surprise given what we saw last weekend against Newcastle United?
No, that is the back four I put in the paper today. I just felt, mainly off the back of what he said again yesterday about players making individual errors, you have to make changes now. Of course, probably the biggest individual error last weekend was Tim Krul, who retains his place. Whether it's a slightly different scenario for outfield players, but Giannoulis out, Williams in, I thought that was liable, and Zimmerman unavailable. But of course, Ben Gibson has made a few errors of late, and the fact that he trusts Sam Byram. If we remember the way that has finished, or the way that lineup today is, bar the left back, is how they finished against Newcastle. Sam Byram switched into the middle of the park alongside Grant Hanley. Max comes in at right back, and my mind goes back with Sam Byram 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, where Smith openly admitted they've come in, they've looked at the players, they've looked at Sam Byram, they've thought, what a player this guy is. The only issue with him is really the injury and coming back from that, and his body being robust enough to train regularly, to play regularly. Clearly, Dean Smith has no concerns on that matter, and if that is the case, I think in this current mix, Sam Byram plays for Dean Smith. I think he really likes him that much. So the fact that he had a look at him in the middle of the back four alongside Grant does underline against Sam Byram's versatility. We've seen him at left back, we've seen him at right back. We saw him actually when he came back. He might have been the reverse fixture here against these at Carrow Road in December, his first game back, and he played him in a holding midfield role. He came on at half time or late in the first half. So you have a very versatile footballer, and doesn't say a huge amount for where Dean Smith thinks Ben Gibson is at the minute. Essentially, a makeshift centre-back is preferred to an established centre-back. So, it is consistent with what Dean Smith is saying to these players, that if you make mistakes, if you keep making too many mistakes, too many big mistakes, he's got to change it. And he's obviously stuck true to his word. Further ahead of the team, I thought there might be, rightly or wrongly, I thought he might look at this game and maybe think if Kenny McLean's playing with this broken foot, Norman didn't really cover himself in glory, whether it's a Billy Gilmore type game, and that's not me personally advocating for Billy Gilmore, just how Dean Smith maybe saw it. But he's gone with McLean, Norman, Lise Malou, and ahead of them, he's not made any changes to that front three. So, it is really for Dean Smith looking at last week, that defensive area where he wasn't happy. And if I look down the options he had on the bench, Sargent has obviously missed 4 or 5 games. He's not coming straight back into the 11. Really, it's probably more of a sad indictment on what he's got to change up, really. It doesn't feel to me that maybe there's too many other options. Johnny Rowe, do you give him that start? Well, I think if it's confirmed today in terms of relegation, I think then if becomes when, because at that stage, with 4 games left, they're down, they're planning for the championship. Let's see what Jonathan Rowe can do in a bigger block of time on the pitch than, another second half cameo. So, yeah, I guess where Dean Smith's at the minute, it's probably as good an 11 as he can put on the pitch. Whether they're good enough to get something out of this Villa game today, time will tell. But certainly he's looked at that and he's felt defensively we needed to make a change or two, and he's done that today. And I did say to you, we were watching the players when they came out for that kind of first stretch, and Dimi Yanulis's body language carried the air of a man who knew the axe had arrived. So I doubt he'll be too happy. But, as Dean Smith said, because he's gone with a lone player now, he doesn't care if they're lone players or not. They're all Norwich players between now and the end of the season. And as a result, he will pick on what he feels from week to week is the best side. And today, maybe looking at the threats Villa offer defensively, he needs Brandon Williams as opposed to Dimi Yanulis.
Yes, absolutely. And the headline in terms of an Aston Villa front is that Emi Buendia doesn't start for them. So they line up like this: Martinez in goal, Cash, Chambers, Mings and Digne, their back four. McGinn, Bunham and Ramsey, the midfield three, with Bailey one side, Coutinho the other behind, Ollie Watkins, their subbench, Olsen, Konza, Ashley Young, Douglas Louise, Marvelous Nakamba, Emi Buendia, Traore, Ings and Chukwuemeka. So that's the Aston Villa side. So Paddy, I guess I'll throw it over to you on that very point really. No Emi Buendia for Aston Villa. I think there was maybe we spoke about cruel ironies right at the start of Dean Smith coming back to Aston Villa, and maybe this potentially being the place that Norwich City's relegation from the Premier League can be confirmed. But I think everyone, and look, it could still be the case that Emi Buendia comes on and scores the goal that relegates Norwich City, but that would be again another cruel narrative and what has been a very harsh, disappointing, hard to watch season for City fans.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the scenario that plays out, a second half cameo and he scores the goal, coupled with obviously Burnley winning at Watford, it does confirm Norwich's demotion, then there would be the bitterest of ironies. But ultimately, it's interesting. I thought what Dean Smith said, that he's a terrific player, he will come good. He's struggling with that transition maybe, and Dean mapped out some of the reasons when he was here at the start of the season that maybe held back his integration. Certainly is a frontline option. Of course, since then, Steven Gerrard's gone out, brought in Philippe Coutinho on loan. There is a buy option in January. Clearly, very similar type of player, you could argue. And for now, it's going to be Coutinho rather than Buendia. So, but what I took away from when Dean Smith was mapping that out, that bringing it back to Norwich, that talking of that transition and players who are struggling, he did make a clear parallel with some of the Norwich signings who have maybe struggled as well similarly, and I think we can all know the ones we're alluding to. It hasn't really been a season where any of the summer intake have really put their stamp on it, and that's clearly the case with Emi Buendia. So time will tell. If I'm looking at what Villa will do in the summer, I'd imagine they'll be busy again. Steven Gerrard is clearly a very ambitious coach. He wouldn't have come here without guarantees in terms of backing in windows. Has the dial already turned for Emi Buendia and Aston Villa? Very interesting, purely as an observer from a distance now, where he fits into Steven Gerrard's plans. But certainly today, I'm sure Steven Gerrard will be thinking, if the game's delicately poised, let's just drop Emi Buendia into the equation and see if, from Norwich's fans' point of view, the nightmare scenario can play out. And if he does score, keep that celebration under wraps. A little bit like as we saw on the big screen here, Connor, before the game. Wes Ulan, the infamous goal that he celebrated. Well, he didn't celebrate in front of the whole end over here when there was all that speculation about whether he'd join Paul Lambert at Aston Villa. But today, I'm certainly hoping if there is an Emi Buendia strike, we don't get too much of a celebration.
Yes, absolutely. Just finally, we'll kind of end on the point that we started with Dean Smith. I mean, how do you think he will be feeling about this afternoon's game? There's obviously all of the elements with Norwich City's potential relegation, but this is a return to a place that for 3.5 years he considered his home. He came to watch Aston Villa as a boy. Everyone's aware of the links that he had and how much he loves this football club. No doubt there'll be plenty of his family in attendance as well. There's going to be a flag, probably we suspect, in the whole end, saluting what he did here as a kind of a goodbye for Villa fans. It's poised to be a very interesting, maybe emotional day for him for lots of reasons, Pat.
Yeah, very strange. Yeah, I mean, and he talked up about how much he's looking forward to it, but we're talking about Emi Buendia not celebrating. It's a difficult one for Dean Smith if there is quite a show of appreciation for him before the game, and we've seen those reports of that by now. I'm sure that will get unfolded for the game. Ultimately, as he said, whether it was Villa Park, Anfield, or Old Trafford, if they go down today, it will hurt just as much. His focus is now on Norwich, but it is nice to feel that you've left a club that's dear to his heart. We all know that, what it means to him as a boy on the terraces, watching their glory years, European Cup winners, League winners, League Championship winners in the early 80s. That he feels appreciated, and as he said yesterday, he's had so much letters, text from Villa fans thanking him for what he did, and I thought it was nice that he also referenced Daniel Farker, and neither of those, if we're honest, wanted to leave. It certainly wasn't on their terms, but that's football. They work in a very volatile industry. Both of those were not wanted, and if you're not wanted, you've got to move on. And as he said when he was unveiled at Norwich, Villa, in terms of his coaching timeline, is 3 years, his professional football timeline is like 3 years out of, I don't know, however many years since he was 17, I think he said. So, it's a small portion of his career in football, but clearly a club that means a lot to him. But I'm pretty sure there'll be no divided loyalty today. When that whistle goes, for so many reasons, he needs a performance and hopefully a result here today, because ultimately, even if it is to be relegation confirmed today, for all the reasons that have come to pass in the last sort of week or so, people need something to cling to and some optimism, and that can only come for me from him and his players and what they do on the pitch between now and the end of the season. The end goal maybe beyond them, sadly, but if it is, then it's about the next chapter. And Dean Smith is speaking like a man who wants to be part of that, who wants to shape that, wants to drive that. We keep hearing about this cultural change that he wants to bring in. That all's going to take time. So he's clearly a man who's here for the long haul. And, I guess if you look at the job he did at Villa, you have to be confident that given the right tools and the right backing, he could do something similar with Norwich.
Good stuff, Paddy. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for watching. We hope, of course, it doesn't happen today. We'll, of course, be across the Pink 'Un channels across the afternoon to bring you coverage on the Pink 'Un Plus app and on the website and whatnot. There is Villa Park in all of its glory. It's a lovely day. I can see as I look directly opposite me, the away end, he's filling up probably the fullest section of the ground at the moment. So let's hope those Norwich City fans have something to cheer about come the end of the afternoon in what's been a very dark season. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.